Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman.
And I'm Richard Bimmer.
And welcome to episode 7 of Rolling Release, our Linux podcast about the perpetual improvement of Linux. Did I say Linux twice? I don't know. How you doing this week, Richard?
Pretty good.
All right, so we have yet another new co-host with us. Richard is going to be joining us for this week, maybe a couple more. So yeah, you want to give that was a super quick intro. But yeah, we have some exciting news this week we're going to talk about. Maybe we'll have a feature later. Richard, what's your experience with Linux so far?
So I'm a computer science major in university right now. I just finished my first year. And I didn't really start Linux using it a whole lot until then. I'd always liked to kind of just mess around with it because I was just interested in that. But I use, on my desktop, I have two hard drives now, one with Windows, one with Linux. I use Linux mostly when I do programming on it. And on my laptop, I have Elementary OS. And my laptop is actually a Chromebook that I just rewrote the firmware on. I had to rewrite the BIOS, which was not a fun thing to do, and then replace that with Elementary OS. So I've also used it on a couple VPSs, like with just Ubuntu server and stuff, which has been interesting to try and do a couple times. But I used Linode. I moved from DigitalOcean to Linode recently as well.
Cool. So you have personal experience using Linux, and you're a developer.
Yeah.
So this will be great. We finally got a co-host who actually knows probably more than I do about programming, at least, and actually knows what Linux is and everything. All the other co-hosts before this have been new to Linux, but none of that stuff anymore. Now we've got someone who knows what's going on. So we're gonna jump right into our first story this week, Richard, and we've got Fedora 26 has been released. Congratulations to the Fedora team, and did you take a look at the Fedora 26 release notes?
No, I did not. But
right. I
really am more used Ubuntu and its related distros for the most part. So
Fedora was my first ever distro, so I like to keep an eye on it and see what's happening because it was how I got introduced to Linux, and it was the first one I used for 6 months before I discovered other distros. But yeah, Fedora 26, it was approved on July 11th. For final release, and it appears to ship with 15 different editions. You can get it with GNOME, which is the default, but you got KDE, XFCE, LXDE, LXQT, Mate, Cinnamon, Sugar on a Stick, Server, Security, and Robotics edition. The Sugar on a Stick, I think that's that weird, it's the pie type thing where your menu is a little circle here. Pretty lightweight, but yeah. It's an interesting addition, but you can get Fedora with any of your different desktop environments. There are also there's a Fedora 26 Design Suite, Fedora 26 Games. You can download all of these as live ISO images from the Fedora website now, and they've actually got a website, torrents.fedoraproject.org is where you can go. That's the torrent server, so you can grab those. That's cool, they have official torrents. And there's another article here from ZDNet. It's got a little bit more information about what actually is updated and improved in Fedora 26. They do point out this is the first time in a while that Fedora has been released, and the final release date has not been postponed at once during release candidate phase. They went alpha, that was postponed a bunch. It was postponed a bunch in beta, but when they hit release candidate, they stayed on schedule until the release. That hasn't happened for a while, so that's cool.
Good accomplishment on their part, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Fedora used to have a really rigid, every 6 months we release, every 6 months. But then, something happened a couple years back, and then they just started being kind of like Debian, where it's we release when we're ready. So, it's interesting to see them kind of getting back into a schedule. Fedora 26 has kernel 4.11.8, and 4.12 was just released about a week ago, so that was too late to make it into this Fedora release, but that's alright. The LXQT spin, that is an addition. Fedora 25 did not have an LXQT spin. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, not exactly.
Huh?
I actually don't know what LXQT is.
That's LXDE and RazorQT merged, and they made LXQT. So, for whatever reason, there is a Fedora 26 LXDE, but then you've got Fedora 26 LXQT now as well, if you want the newer Qt-based lightweight thing. So, if you do get just the standard Fedora workstation, it comes with GNOME 3.24.2, and then, basically, when Fedora opens, or when Fedora releases an update, it's just, all the packages are updated now. They're 6 months newer versions, just kind of like Ubuntu updates. Yeah, of course, Fedora is sort of like Debian in that it only ships free and open source software in its default repositories, so you can't get Flash, you can't get official Java, you can't get that kind of thing unless you go and add in a third-party repository like RPM Fusion is the most popular one, but there are some other ones out there kind of up and coming as well. So yeah, if you're a Fedora user and if you're into the whole RPM package management thing, definitely check out Fedora 26. Yeah, it's at, let's see, is it getfedora.org is their current website. Yeah, that's what it is. So you can grab that now. Go check it out. All right. Any other thoughts about that?
Not a whole lot. I feel like I should have tried out Fedora at one time, but I haven't really.
Yeah, it's...
I'm stuck more with Ubuntu.
Yeah. It's pretty nice. It's mostly just a vanilla GNOME experience, but yeah. They tend to be more on the bleeding edge than Ubuntu, so yeah. In other news this week, SteamOS, the latest SteamOS beta that was released, it has a couple improvements. It picks up Linux kernel 4.11.8 and it fixes a PlayStation 4 controller crash. Now this says DS controller crash. Do we know what that means?
No.
Alright. Oh, DualShock. Alright, that's what DS stands for, right?
That would make sense.
Okay, yeah, because the PlayStation 4, we've got a couple of non-gamers here. The PlayStation 4 controller is called the DualShock controller because of the rumble machines inside of it, sensors or whatever. So yeah, SteamOS beta used to have a problem with the DualShock controller where it would crash sometimes, and now the latest beta fixes that issue. It looks like the fix was actually in Linux kernel 4.11.8. So even if you're using like Ubuntu, as soon as you get an update to your kernel to 4.11.8, then you won't have this PS4 controller crash either, because the fix was actually upstream. But yeah, if you're using SteamOS is based on Debian, and it's just made to be kind of pre-installed on Steam machines. You can install it yourself if you want to on your own Steam box. But yeah. It also comes with, if we look at the SteamOS website, the update, it was 2.119 was the SteamOS beta version. And yeah, it's got some updates to some firmware. It's got an update to Apache 2. Not sure why they ship a web server with SteamOS, but they do, and it has been updated. So yeah, yeah, I have not used SteamOS myself, although I do use Steam on Linux fairly often. I haven't used SteamOS, but yeah, any thoughts about this one?
I mean, that's good they fixed the bug. I more use. I do when I game. I have a Xbox 360 controller that I use, so would have been affected a whole lot by that.
Right. Yeah.
Always found the PlayStation controllers a little unergonomic on my hands. But...
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a 360 controller as well. But yeah, always good to have additional hardware support because some people just like having two joysticks right next to each other for whatever reason. Our next story, we're really flying through this week. Our next story is Visual Studio Code has been updated. Richard, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So I have not actually used Visual Studio Code, but it actually looked pretty interesting. So this was my first time kind of reading about it. And it's basically Microsoft released Visual Studio for Linux kind of in an open source way to support the kind of more open source community with it, which is kind of cool. I don't know, didn't really give anything about C#, so probably like one of the bigger Microsoft Plus with C#, you can't really use that on Linux, I don't think, anyway.
I think that Studio Code is actually a completely separate program from regular Visual Studio. I think you can get this on Windows and Mac OS as well, but yeah.
But it's basically, I feel like, kind of their support for it more on the open source platform. And this update was pretty big because they kind of re-implemented the integrated terminal, or say, well, they put selection back in it. I think that would be handy for some people, obviously, so you can finally copy and paste it again. I don't know if that included up arrow support or if that was always in there, because the article doesn't really go into a whole lot of detail, and I haven't used it before. But also they had a fair amount of other highlights. They had a new difference review pane, which I imagine that's pretty nice to have a better integrated one into the program to be able to see the difference between two documents, or when you're doing like merges in Git, you have issues and you need to sort that out. And there was also improvements to Git, which I imagine is pretty big. I have a debug API. I'm assuming that's to debug your apps, which would be pretty cool, actually, if there's like an improved debug section for it. But overall, this actually kind of made me interested in maybe seeing if I should try this out and just see kind of what it supports in terms of programming languages and what benefits it kind of could offer over other like IDEs in general.
Mm-hmm. Did you say this was open source?
I believe it said it was open source when I
Yes.
looked it up.
It's open
Yeah,
source.
Microsoft has released an update to Visual Studio Code. It's an open source editor for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. But that's cool. They do also support Windows and Mac OS as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm grabbing this thing right now. I want to try it out live on stream. Not that I'm going to be able to do much with it, but unless you want to read me code out loud to type. But, alright, keep
Yeah, I'll go check it out as well.
code. See, if I was on Arch, I would have been done installing this by now, but I had to download a deb file because I'm on Ubuntu. So yeah, if
So
you
also
go-
they support intelligent code completion, which I think they're trying to compete with IntelliSense, which is
yeah,
IntelliSense is by IntelliJ, and that's a pretty it's one of the most powerful ones I think in terms of auto completion
Mhm.
and prompting. Certainly when I used it, it was a huge upgrade over Eclipse, and
Yeah.
often it would guess the names of things or the methods that I wanted to use and put them way at the top so that I could just instantly get where I wanted to get.
yeah, Visual Studio is
I
pretty
mean, I
well
swear
known
sometimes
for
I
that.
could probably write the code for you, but
Alright, so here we got Visual Studio Code running, and it just opened up Firefox. I don't know why it opened up Firefox. I don't know why it
Oh,
opened up
no.
Firefox. I don't know why it did that. It tried to open up a
1,000
documentation
tabs.
page. Yep. It tried to open up a documentation page. I also don't know why our fade effect is broken in OBS. Yeah, it opened up a help page. So yeah, here's Visual Studio Code. Be aware when you open it the first time, it's going to open up a help page in your default web browser. So be prepared for that. And then we've got an Electron app here, and we can see toggle developer tools. This is how you can tell it's an Electron app, because you can get the Chromium developer tools. But yeah, let's see. Let's start a new file. So can I do HTML on this, or do I need to do? No, I think I need a big boy programming language, which I don't know how to. All right, well. Here's what it looks like when you start a file.
If I just zoomed in on my camera.
Yeah, we can.
It's this little window on to share screen, so it's kind of hard to see your screen. But
What's if this was on your screen, you could actually probably type something. But yeah, tools and languages. So install support for JavaScript,
you can just
TypeScript.
download something from GitHub real quick and see.
That's a good idea. It looks like Git is not installed in my system, according to this. So what? Should I just download a random file and open it up? Do you think?
Yeah, you could probably.
It's a good.
I don't know
thinking.
what's a project. I have some projects of mine, but they're all kind of a big JavaScript project with dependencies and stuff. But we could see if it supports our Java project. We could see if it supports Maven.
What? All right. How would I do that?
Can you do git clone in this? Let me see.
As soon as I install Git, then probably.
Okay.
Let me install Git. I should have it anyway. I should switch back to my desktop now as well. So here is Visual Studio Code once again. Here I'll go through what was happening when I was talking when I didn't have the screen on the screen. So we've got developer tools there, which you're not going to need because it's an Electron app. And it just crashed. Visual Studio Code just crashed. Gonna open it up again. It classifies itself as a text editor in my menu. So yeah, we can start a new file here. We can start typing. Alright, so it kind of has basic autocompletion for
control.
HTML.
Doesn't have a quick. I can't find a quick option to clone a repository, but
Okay.
I wish there was something built into it for doing that.
Yeah.
I imagine there is, and I'm just not able to find it quickly. But
There's an interesting command palette that is a drop down of things you can type to do different options. Do you know anything about the command palette in regular Visual Studio?
no, because I actually used Visual Studio a while back, but then when I started switching to Linux, I just ended up sticking with Eclipse, and then followed by IntelliJ and some of their products. So I did it one time, used it, and I do believe I actually had it installed on my Windows computer.
Alright, I've just installed Git. So we are going to restart Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, you could probably just git clone it into a folder and see if you can open the folder in.
Alright, you want to give me a URL?
Yeah, let me open up GitHub, go to my organization. Okay, there's a project manager that I have that has a pm.xml file, so we can see if we can clone that.
Alright, I'm in my documents folder.
I'll post it.
Git clone.
I'll post it in that. It's in the rabbit room.
Got it. Oh, it parsed it though.
I turned it into a link, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it can hopefully have Maven support and read a pm.xml file. I don't know if it actually does, so
All right, so we're going to clone. So what is this exactly that I'm cloning right now?
So it's like a project manager open source one I built. Basically, it allows you to like keep track of freelance jobs you're doing, or just keep track of like any sort of kind of jobs, income from it, and time spent on it. I plan to like upgrade eventually with more features, and wanted to add like reports that it could generate and stuff eventually.
Cool. So we're going to open up the project manager folder, and here we've got .idea, res source. So here's main.java. All right, cool.
See if you can right-click the pom.xml file and see if it'll recognize that real quick. If it'll understand that that's Maven.
Okay, I'll do that in a moment. The language support
All
for
right.
Java by Red Hat extension is
so I enabled the random
recommended
extension
for this file type. I don't know if we don't have... I might not actually have Java installed. That might be what it's complaining about. All right, so what did you want me to click on? pom.xml?
Right-click, yeah, pom.xml. That should be at the bottom.
Right-click it?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if it support. I wanted to see if it could support recognize that as a Maven project, but
I mean, I left-clicked it. It opened it up as an XML file. When I right-click it, it's got open to the side, open containing folder, open in terminal, select for compare. That's about it.
okay.
What would a Maven file do? What's Maven?
So basically, Maven's a dependency management system.
Okay.
So if you use other people's libraries in your code, all you have to do is put a Maven file, and then, for example, an IDE can just that has Maven support can detect that and let it automatically build it for you.
Okay.
And basically, it's kind of a universal way of knowing how to build code without having to like have a specific file stating for that specific IDE how it builds it.
Interesting. All right. Well, yeah, that's Visual Studio Code. We can open up. Yep, looks like it's got syntax highlighting and whatnot. Let's see. Yeah. Public static. So it'll sort of autocomplete some things. Cool. So I'm just like copying some things we've already got in here, so I can see like the auto highlighting and completing and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean they're trying to compete with IntelliSense, so it should be pretty good.
Yeah, it's auto-completing quite a bit. I don't know exactly what I'm doing here, but...
I wish I could see your screen, because like I can see the screen shared, but it's a small window.
Alright, well, what I've just done is I added in themeutils.java, I added another public static void. So I did an add vertical spacer instead of an add horizontal spacer, and then I created a new rigid area, as what I just did. But, I don't know,
Yeah, basically I made it so it uses Java Swing for GUIs, and I made like one class that allows you to have same standard for all the methods. That way I can eventually implement a theming system, and it'll just depend on the theme set and like render a different one for each theme.
Alright.
But Swing is a default library built into Java for creating GUIs.
Oh,
It's actually somewhat dated now, but...
Okay. Huh. Alright. Well, yeah, anything else you think I should do with this before we close it?
No, I think that probably covered most things. I mean, I know we didn't do an in-depth thing, but neither of us had used it before, so...
I can install language support for Java Red Hat right here. I can click install within this program, and then maybe that will add more... Let's see.
Highlighting and being able to compile, hopefully.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Couldn't start language support for Java. Java runtime.
Due to probably not having Java.
That would be it. And now it's opening Firefox again. Okay. It wants me to download open. It took me to
change your default web browser.
Yeah, it took me to the open. Well, it doesn't make any sense because this is my default web browser, but not during the show. Yeah, it did take me to the OpenJDK website, which is interesting. It didn't take me to Java.com or Oracle's website.
I wonder if that was like the Red Hat tool that was doing that, or whether it was Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code.
Probably, yeah, Red Hat. That might have something to do with that, because Red Hat is super strict about their software licensing and whatnot. As you can tell by the fact that Fedora only has free and open source software in their repos. So yeah. So there's Visual Studio Code. If it looks interesting, feel free to check it out of your own accord. anyone who happens to be watching, and leave us your comments about this. If this is helpful to you, if you like this program, let us know in the comments down below. So, with that, we'll go to our next story. What's our next story? We've got next generation of Kdenlive is now available for testing. So Kdenlive is currently at version 16.04 is what's out right now. They've been working on 16.07 was like the development version. But a while back, Kdenlive had a fundraiser for refactoring. And this was sort of around the same time that KDE's entire port from Qt4 to Qt5 was happening. So some of the stuff kind of got mixed in with that. But in terms of the actual just program refactoring, there is a next generation version of Kdenlive available for testing. You can actually test it via app image right now, which is awesome. Do you know about app images?
I feel like I've heard of them, but
they are
it's another kind of system, like an alternative to using a package manager.
Sort of, yeah. It is, and like snaps or flatpaks, I would call an alternative package manager. But this really is an alternative to a package manager, like you said. With an app image, it's one file that contains the entire program, just like a DMG file on macOS. So we are going.
Does it also like save the settings in there? Like, can it change itself? That would be pretty cool.
Yes.
Just like
I believe it does.
For portability.
Yeah.
Because then you could like copy it to a flash drive and move around.
Yeah, they're definitely portable. So I'm actually going to download this right now, and this is how easy. Now, some people don't like app images for whatever reason, because there's not like an app image management program thing, even though there are some, but there's not like an official one. Like with snaps, you install snap. With flatpaks, you install flatpak. There's not like an app image program you have to install.
So is it built, like, where's the support for it built into the OS then? Or?
No, that's the thing. App images can run on any Linux system. Unlike snaps and flatpaks, you have to install a dependency. App image is my favorite out of all the universal installers, because this is when you have an app image, you just have to chmod it to make it executable, which I'm going to do right now, and then you just run it, and then any Linux system can run an app image after you set it.
So it's built into the kernel itself, the support for them, essentially?
Yeah, because like the app image itself, quote-unquote app image, it's just a container that contains like all of the files that the program requires, and it hooks into your system, and basically instead of like installing to /user/bin all of the files that you would normally need, they just keep them in the app image file. So yeah, we're going to...
Yeah, that seems like really cool for the portability aspect, at least, certainly.
Yeah.
The idea that your settings would then stay the same no matter where you move your whatever program you're using, whether it's an IDE or something. That's kind of the first thing that comes to my mind, because that's kind of like something at least I would personally use, that I want my settings to always be very specific.
Yeah, so we've got, I just chmodded it to make it executable, and now I'm going to run the refactored Kdenlive. We're opening up right now, and as you can see, it just runs. Alright, Kdenlive needs to be...
Let's hope it doesn't open Firefox.
Let's hope it doesn't open Firefox. Kdenlive needs to be restarted to apply a color theme change. Restart now, I'll click continue, and here we go. Here is the new Kdenlive. Very exciting. It's a black screen right now. I've got the terminal.
It was slightly translucent on mine, but...
well, that was because I was dragging it, I think. Shader program is not linked.
The Jitsi is like updating every half a second, so it's kind of an interesting view.
Yeah. Yeah. So it says in the title bar, Untitled HD 1080p 29.97 FPS. So it's definitely running off the app image, because like I can open up my actual installed Kdenlive right now. And we can actually,
different settings.
We can have these side by side. All right, well this one says 29.97 actually also, but which is interesting.
In theory.
It's because I just reinstalled my whole OS, so not all of my settings are everywhere. I'm actually going to change that in my personal one right now to where 30 is. I make all my things in 30 FPS or 60, but
yeah.
Because I
feel like 29.97 is like an odd standard back from TV.
Yeah, so it's from film, yeah. Okay, so this is still... I think this is still trying to... Alright, I'm clicking, and it's making more things happen in the terminal. Oh, we've got a slider. Okay, so Kdenlive is actually open right now. You see this little slider here?
Yes.
That is the volume
slider. That's the only
slider.
thing I see. It's just
In my working Kdenlive, this is what that is. This is the volume slider for the your preview volume. So I was able to randomly click until I found that slider over here, but for whatever reason the app image, I'm gonna try running it again. Yeah, not sure why we're just getting a black. Could not create shader program. Interesting.
Is there another dependency you're missing? Like something new?
Well, no, because all the dependencies in an app image are supposed to be within the app image. So this would be... Well, something's obviously wrong, but this would be the new Kdenlive. You know, this is why this refactored version isn't the stable version right now. Because obviously my system is working fine because I can have my regular Kdenlive open. But, I'm just gonna...
Doesn't that make them really large files, though, if all the dependencies are inside of them?
Yeah, I mean, this one was like between 100 and 200 megabytes, I think. But, I mean, obviously...
Well, that's not big if you consider the libraries have to be included in it.
Yeah. And yeah, but when I say, like, all the dependencies are included, I don't know how deep that goes, but...
I mean, maybe a couple of them.
I mean, it doesn't include the Linux kernel, you know.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have a Linux kernel, you're going to have other serious problems.
Yeah, you're going to have a problem downloading the app image. Alright, might be an NVIDIA problem, maybe, according to Google.
Are you using the proprietary NVIDIA drivers or like the open source ones?
I am using the proprietary ones, which causes problems with KDE sometimes, but... See, if I use the open source ones, it doesn't have enough power to drive a 4K monitor. It's too slow for me to use my mouse with the open source driver.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I use a proprietary.
Obviously, they need to up their game on the open source ones to catch up with 4K.
A little bit.
Although it's really not that common 4K right now, other than like maybe people who are heavy content creators and stuff.
I've got a GTX 1080 though, and I feel like I should be able to push a 4K monitor. Which I can with the proprietary driver. Alright, so I can get little icons, so I'm moving things around, I just can't see what I'm doing in Kdenlive. This is extremely underwhelming. But yeah, basically, next generation of Kdenlive, they have refactored it, which it says in the article here, refactoring means... Actually, Richard, why don't you tell us what refactoring is? You're the developer here.
I'm pretty sure it's like where you rearrange the code and packages and rename things, right?
Yeah, so restructuring existing
computer... that's what it is, okay.
Yeah, restructuring existing computer code without changing its external behavior. So basically, I don't know if I had an incorrect understanding. I thought that it basically meant they were rewriting parts of the program to be cleaner code, so like the program works fine, but then they're making it so that the code is easier to maintain and better.
Yeah. I mean, that certainly would make a lot of sense, and that would definitely be helpful if it's an open source thing. You want a not very steep learning curve. You want people to be able to come in and see your project and figure out where everything is pretty quick so they can make a commit or something or change or add a feature if you're trying to like make a project that has a lot of people contributing to it in an open source environment.
Yeah. So yeah, they've been working on the refactoring for a while. I'm just going to go to Kdenlive's website right now and see if they've got an updated, because they say they're hoping to provide nightly app images for the unstable. But yeah, we'll see app image. So here's the stable app image that you can download right now from their website.
Do they provide any alternative ways of downloading it?
Under Snap,
that might be more likely to work.
They provide plenty of ways to get the stable version. The unstable version, no. So, because like the stable version, they've got an experimental Snap package, Flatpak. They just say, they'd say we don't provide any Flatpaks yet. The community is invited to help, and then of course you can get like your packages as well for the stable version. But yeah, we're not gonna. This is just turning into a bunch of us trying to get things working in Visual Studio and Kdenlive and whatnot. So we're gonna move on from that. By the way, we haven't checked the chat room in freaking forever. Nobody's talking to us, are they?
Yeah, I haven't checked it actually, to be fair either. So
we're horrible streamers here. I'm sorry, everyone. This is why I need like Mark or Stephanie, one of the people who. All right, nobody's talking to us. All right, we're good. It's all right. So yeah, that is Kdenlive. Check it out. Refactoring version coming soon. Next story. Have you read through this one yet?
briefly, but I didn't quite understand everything that was entailed in this. Because I
Okay.
haven't paid a whole lot of attention to the Free Software Foundation or certain things.
All right.
Since I'm more in Linux, just with the development kind of aspect. I feel like there's a lot of parts of the deeper community that I do not understand fully or kind of have not been enlightened in.
So the Free Software Foundation has certified 15 new devices as they call it RYF certified, respects your freedom. They are mostly, they're all from a company called Techno-Ethical. And they, every single time, about every other time in this article, they say the word techno-ethical, they follow it up by formerly technoetic. So this company has recently changed their company name, and they want to make sure they changed their company name. But, techno-ethical makes some laptops that respect your freedom 100%. You can run the entire thing from BIOS to your operating system down to the user applications, and everything can be not only open source but also Libre and freedom respecting. Now I was really excited when I read the headline, 15 new devices, freedom respecting, amazing, because my laptop, I've got proprietary drivers on here, that's not freedom respecting, but then these are just completely, you can run the whole thing with free drivers and free software. However,
I mean, that's cool. The BIOS is pretty cool. That's because usually you don't have, pretty much every BIOS is usually proprietary, I imagine.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to get newer laptops working with Core Boot and whatnot, like the free BIOS options out there. Here's the kicker, though. These quote-unquote new laptops are not new laptops. They are really old ThinkPads that everyone who follows, if you've ever researched, I want a completely free laptop, that's one of the most common things, is buy an old ThinkPad. So then this company's just taking old ThinkPads. It immediately gave it away because the first one on the list is the TET-X200. And I was like, X200? That's the name of that really popular ThinkPad. So, yeah, if you look at the picture of it, you can immediately tell, that that's an old ThinkPad. It's barely widescreen. And it's got the old keyboard on it, the pre-chiclet keyboard back from when IBM actually owned the ThinkPad line. That's how old these things are. Yeah.
But it's got the techno-ethic brand.
It has a techno-ethic branding on it.
Actually, it's the old one too. It doesn't say the.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's not techno-ethical. It's just techno-ethic. That's probably why they say previously known as every single time. So this is a refurbished 12.1 inch laptop. It comes pre-installed with Libre boot, but if you want to actually, it comes with Triskel is the distro that it comes with, and
478 euros is that?
We have
steep
upgraded the memory to the maximum capacity of 8 gigabytes. And I'm kind of sad to laugh at this sort of thing, because Free Software Foundation has my respect on an ideological standpoint, whereas a lot of people just don't give a crap about what they're doing at all. But this is a kind of a bad thing, because it really pushes forward the notion. A lot of people who don't understand, the free software enthusiasts, say, if you want to use free and open software, just buy a 15-year-old laptop. If you're someone who cares about software freedom, you shouldn't be buying new laptops. And as someone, I've got a laptop that is pretty much top of the line here, but I would like it if it all ran on free and open software. It doesn't, but I wish it did. But I wish that there would be, if Techno-Ethical, I almost said the old name again, if they made laptops like my current one, then I might buy from them, because I want updated components and I want free software. It's not an either-or thing. But yeah, we've got some of the other models available. There's the T500, and they're all just old ThinkPads. This one is more widescreen. It's 15.4 inch. It's like proper widescreen. Still clearly the old ThinkPad pre-Lenovo. They
also apparently have a Bluetooth USB adapter, though.
Oh, well, yeah. So a couple of these things were not, a couple of the devices that were certified as RYF, they are not laptops, but they're actually adapters. So here's a Nano Bluetooth 4.0 USB adapter for GNU/Linux Libre. So if you want to use Bluetooth, but you don't want to compromise your freedom while doing it, you can grab this thing, and you won't have to worry about proprietary drivers. And this is actually now, do they have any Wi-Fi adapters or just Bluetooth?
Unfortunately, it didn't look like it in the article.
Oh, well, they have 2 internal Wi-Fi devices. So you can get this thing popped.
So like one you could put in a desktop, or
I think they're for laptops.
I guess the ThinkPad's pretty easy to take apart, right? I haven't had one, but I thought they were designed for that.
And even it's a kind of a common, well, maybe not super common, but yeah, there's this mini PCIe is this one. So yeah, I've seen that in laptops, like for existing Wi-Fi cards that they come with. But this kind of thing is super helpful because at this point, like if I take any old laptop and I plug in Ubuntu USB into it, it's going to have Wi-Fi. When I started using Linux, though, that wasn't the case. I used to have to plug my laptop into Ethernet every time I reinstalled to install the Wi-Fi driver from online, because for years and years, Linux didn't have great Wi-Fi support out of the box. So then if you got one of these things, these free and open Wi-Fi adapters, then you could plug this in and you're pretty much guaranteed to have Wi-Fi support on any distro without installing any additional packages. Of course, these days, now that Ubuntu and everything are including more proprietary drivers, it's not as relevant. But yeah, if you when I saw the Bluetooth adapter, I immediately thought, oh, what if they did this for Wi-Fi? And they do. If you want to have a laptop with Wi-Fi and you don't want to have to worry about driver support for that, I mean, it's nice when you've got, not only is it freedom respecting, but when you've got a free and open driver, it's going to be pre-installed in like Fedora, whereas proprietary things are not pre-installed in Fedora, they're not pre-installed in Debian, so that's more effort you have to go through every time you reinstall your distro. So even if you don't care about free and open software, that's still a practical benefit you can get.
Yeah, I remember there was a thing when I first tried Linux, it was maybe like 2011, and I had like an old Windows laptop, and they had an installer that would actually set up the partition for you and help you guide through the process, so you didn't have to actually know how to do that, because at the time I didn't. And I remember it ran, but I could never get Wi-Fi to work on it at all.
Yep.
So
yeah,
it became kind of, I had to tie it to Ethernet, and so it became somewhat difficult to really get into Linux at that point for me, since it was on a laptop. It kind of defeated the purpose.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're looking for really old tech, if you're looking for I mean, honestly, if $568 for a T400 isn't that great of a deal, but it's also not horrible if the laptops are in okay condition, because ThinkPads last forever. So if you're looking for a side machine or something to take on the go, I wouldn't want to use that for my main machine, or I wouldn't want to use that for editing even these days. But yeah, if you're the kind of person looking for a ThinkPad but you want to try out a system that's completely freedom respecting, you can check out Techno Ethical, and they have the Free Software Foundation's blessing. And our last story for this week, you want to take this one?
All right, so let me actually open it. I mean, there's not a whole lot to have to open it and talk about, but basically this is pretty normal, but Ubuntu has now announced that their 16.10 Yakety Yak, which is their code name, which was released 9 months ago, is going to reach end of support cycle. So I feel like for the most part, this should just be a reminder to people to upgrade and stay with the latest one, so that you're actually getting security updates for your operating system. Do as I say, not as I do, because at this point my distro is kind of stuck on 15.10 and is like literally won't upgrade. Yeah, it won't upgrade.
How did
and
that
it won't
happen
let me
again?
download new programs.
You told me that before
it was
the
like
show.
it was Ubuntu Mate I was using.
What version?
And for some reason, I don't know. It won't let me upgrade the whole OS anymore. So
what happens when you try and do like apt dist update or whatever, distro upgrade? What's the?
I can't remember. It just said some odd error.
Do it right now.
And then people were like,
right now.
I'm not on it. But then some people were talking about it online, and it appeared the best solution after like looking some stuff up and seeing some posts is probably just to copy all my files, back it up, and reformat and install a new one.
I mean, with Linux, honestly, I've never been someone who just updates the entire distro version. If a new version of my distro comes out, I'm going to do a clean install anyway. Personally, that's why I loved like Arch, because I never had to clean install Arch, because Arch never has distro upgrades. You just update all your packages. Right now, I have switched to KDE Neon temporarily, And so I'm on an Ubuntu 16.04 base. So next year, when 18.04 comes out and KDE Neon refactors or rebases for that, then I'm going to have to do a clean install, because that's going to be upgrading all my packages 2 years worth, which is, you're going to run into problems when you're updating all of the software on your computer at the same time, several years or even several months in the case of regular Ubuntu, all at the same time. Yeah, so that's why I like rolling releases. But if you're on Ubuntu 16.10, the end of life officially is Thursday, July 20th, which is this upcoming week. So if you're on this thing, why haven't you upgraded to 17.04? Why haven't you upgraded to 17? Yeah. I guess 17.04 is the most recent version. But yeah, do that. And yeah. Or you can downgrade to 16.04, and that's still supported until next year. So yeah, you got 2 ways to go, even though there's not an official downgrade option. But
so which one's their LTS?
That is 16.04 is the latest.
Okay.
It's the even.04s are the LTSs.
Yeah, I thought that was, but isn't it 5-year support or?
Yeah, they're 5-year support, but they have one every 4 years. So there's some overlap for you in that case as well. So yeah.
Poor guys who have to manage all the security upgrades for all that stuff.
Yeah.
Must be a busy job.
So that's all of our stories for this week. I like that there's just these, here's what Ubuntu is at the bottom of the Ubuntu mailing list. That's all of our stories for this week, and in a moment here, we may or may not have a feature.
It's been a couple weeks since you did one of these, right?
Yeah. We had a no-show and then RTX, so... Alright, before our feature segment this week, I want to take a moment to tell you all about the Nerd Club. Hey, Richard, have you heard about the Nerd Club?
A little. Enlighten me.
The Nerd Club is a way that people can give back to Nerd on the Street if they enjoy our content. So if you, the people watching this, like this show, or if you like any of the other videos we make, if these videos are helpful to you, you can head on over to nerdclub.knots.co. It'll bring you to our Nerd Club sign-up page right here. And yeah, you can sign up for the Nerd Club. You get some cool perks with it. You can see the live stream DVR if you're part of the Nerd Club. You can see the complete uncut stream recordings of all the streams that we do. That's an exclusive for our Nerd Club members. You can access a members-only area of our website, so you can talk to other Nerd Club members. You get a special Discord role if you're into Discord roles on our Discord server. The banner ads on our website go away, and hey, we might occasionally send you merchandise. I've got some leftover Displaced DVDs from RTX. I think I might send a couple of those out to some Nerd Club members, so if you want in on that, join the Nerd Club. Like I said, nerdclub.knots.co. There are a couple different ways to join. You may be asking, for all of those perks that you get, how much is that going to cost me, Jacob? Well, I'll tell you, it only costs $3 per month. If you want to join the Nerd Club, you can join on Patreon. There's a link to it, like I said, over at nerdclub.knots.co. And yeah, you can give us more on Patreon if you want, but $3 per month is just the minimum that we ask if you want all of those perks I just listed off. We have some goals that we're working up to here. When we reach $100 a month, which we're a quarter of the way there now, when we reach 100, we're going to have ad-free videos on our website. None of the videos on our website will have ads anymore. So that'll be really nice for everyone once we reach that. But yeah, we're up to $26 per month on Patreon. You can help us improve that, knock that up a little bit more over at nerdclub.knots.co. You can also join prepaid. Let's say you're not wanting to make a long-term commitment, but you want to join the Nerd Club for 6 months or 1 year. Those are the 2 options on our website. Hey, how convenient is that? You can join. It's just one-time payments. It's the same amount that you would be paying. It's $18 or $36. So it's no funny business. It's no better deal here or there. It's just whatever is most convenient for you. And yeah, it takes money to make videos, and it takes time to make videos more than anything else. And yeah, if you want to pay us for the time and effort and the equipment that we use to make these, nerdclub.knots.co, and help us out a bit. Thanks, everyone. A special thank you to everyone in the Nerd Club right now. That went pretty well. How long have we been going? Oh, we've been going for an hour, so...
Yeah. We managed to use Kdenlive to get some Kdenlive in the Visual Studio Code to get some extra time out of it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been a pretty short episode.
I don't know why that wasn't working. So, for a feature, we didn't have anything planned. If you want to talk about Linode, since you just switched... I did a video a little while back on switching one of my stuff from DigitalOcean to Linode. We can talk about that. Or, alternatively, if you want to talk about... You're not in Linux, so it'd be kind of difficult for you to demonstrate your Linux workflow right now.
Docker would be cool to talk about, though, too. Have you heard of Docker?
Yeah, I heard of it. I don't understand it.
Yeah, so I guess I can explain this. This is more from a programming perspective, so it might be interesting then. But have you heard of Heroku?
No.
So basically, you can go to Heroku.com, but there. So the idea is that it
Basically,
containerizes
look it
your
up.
apps
Okay.
and allows you, when you deploy code, it runs in its own isolated container, so that's much more secure. But also, it just makes it so you can actually do a git push and deploy your code, and it's just instantly running then on the production kind of server, which is a really cool system. Unfortunately, they have a pretty high pricing. Like they originally were really commonly used because the free plan would run 24/7 and had enough that people could run their kind of hobby projects on the free plan.
Mm-hmm.
But they changed it so now your free plan can only run like 20 hours a day and it sleeps after 30 minutes of inactivity. So basically, in order to do any hobby project, you had to get the hobby plan, which was $7, assuming you wanted something that people run 24/7.
Yeah.
And so that like upped the cost for a lot of people, which was kind of annoying, especially for a lot of people who had like these free projects and they'd have like 2 or 3 side sites that are just small, that are just kind of a small thing, and now they have to pay like $21 if they have 3 sites.
Yeah.
So this allowed them, basically, Doku is kind of the idea of combining Docker's containerization with Heroku's concept of supporting Git pushing and deploying just right from Git. So it's a free and open source project, and basically you can install it, and then the cool thing is it has a bootstrapper that just installs all the dependencies for you automatically, including Docker itself. So it can be installed on a fresh virtual like private server. And that's what I recently did, was I installed it to a fresh virtual Linode private server for my site. And then was able to, I had to set up the apps, like one for the database and one for the site, and then connect them, which was a little bit of a pain because you have to allow them to be able to communicate with each other, since otherwise they're kind of in this isolated sandbox where they can't communicate with each other, because that's the whole security aspect of it. And once I was able to do that, though, it's really cool because they just run in a container. You can give them more processes if they need extra like processing power, and you can just like push your code right from Git. You just make a commit, and then you can push to that repository. It'll build it for you using custom build packs that people develop for different languages, and then just starts up the server and runs it. So it's basically allows you to do the equivalent of Heroku, but to host it on your own VPS. And so then you could have, instead of having 3 for 21, you could have 3 running on one $10 like VPS.
Yeah.
And so it's a much cheaper pricing, but you're also managing it yourself. So you really know what you're doing, and you can kind of get in the nitty gritty details and change it if you want. And also, just I don't think Heroku was really doing any open source stuff. They were allowing people to make custom build packs for Heroku, but that was like basically it. So this also just supports the kind of more open source community. And I think Heroku was based on Docker anyway, so they were kind of taking open source projects and monetizing it anyway. So it's a cool way to get around that.
So from your point of view as a developer, Docker lets you... So if you didn't have Docker, you would have to build the project yourself and put it on the server and start the server yourself, and Docker automates those things?
Yeah. Also, it just like I use PHP. Unfortunately, I want to eventually switch to another language, but PHP is one you don't have to build since it's a script.
Right.
But you would still have to obviously push all the files together. It allows you just to have one sort of version control in the other system that just manages that, just receives all the files, does everything. You can then use Composer, which is a dependency management system for PHP that allows you then to manage all those. And it just also sets things up for you. For example, I was struggling to be able to configure the MySQL database to have the right settings to not use too much memory and to balance the memory between the different applications essentially running on the same server. Mm-hmm. And this way you can kind of easily, like Doku will use build packs that people make to manage that stuff for you, or plugins. And the people who develop the plugins usually often know the software well enough that it configures it right out of the box to work in the perfect way. And if it doesn't, then you can always just quickly execute a command on the VPS and kind of change the settings of that particular app to adjust it. But yeah, also the just Heroku pricing scaling past hobby was really high. Like it's $25 per additional dyno, which is basically an extra process running.
Right.
And I mean, these dynos only have like 1 gig of RAM, so the pricing is like pretty high. I understand if someone's like running a site that's making a lot of money, they might want to just not have to do the management themselves, so they can just focus on developing, and that's a great kind of system. But if you are making a site that's more as a hobby, this is a great alternative to it, kind of going the Docker route.
So what's it look like to set Docker up?
So it sets up Docker, which is cool. So they have the Bootstrap, and it sets up Docker for you.
Docker? How do you spell that?
Dokku. It's like Heroku.
Oh.
Like the KU on the end. It's like Docker and Heroku together. Yeah.
Smart. All right.
Yeah.
Docker powered.
But it's, you can just search GitHub. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
It's on GitHub, and they have documentation there as well.
Okay. So what's the difference between using Docker and just using Docker? Like.
Basically, Docker adds the features of build packs, so it allows you to push your code and it'll just configure everything for you and set stuff up. Whereas otherwise with Docker, you have to do a lot of stuff manually. Docker doesn't support any sort of Git version control system at all, so you can't push code to Docker. Like you would have to manually copy the files into the container, which is somewhat troublesome. Every time you make an update, you're gonna have to zip your files up, put them on the VPS, unzip them up, put them in the container each time, and then you're gonna have to take the container down. This can do it just as an automatic script for you in like 10 seconds as soon as you push. So you have minimal downtime when updating as well, and it just makes it much more convenient to do so. And you can also run Docker locally, so that you can test a Docker app on your own development machine, obviously, run the same one, and then push to the production environment, all without ever having to change anything in your code.
All right. So what's it look like to set Docker up again? Like from scratch?
You run a shell file that they download, this Bootstrap file, I think.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find the full documentation, but...
Bootstrap.sh?
Docs. Yeah. You would just do a wget on the... I can send the documentation here, putting in the rabbit room, but... So that has that. Basically, you can use a wget to get the bootstrap.sh file, obviously they have. Then you just have to set up what version you're using with a sudo thing, and then you just run the bootstrap.sh. And it's designed to be run on a clean VPS. I assume you can run it on a regular computer as well. I have not tried that yet, though. But I assume as long as you don't have Docker and certain things already, you probably shouldn't have an issue because it'll install the dependencies for you.
I see it's...
They were saying they were having certain issues with certain VPSs, but Linode was not one of them, so...
Okay.
It worked fine with both Linode and DigitalOcean.
So Docker seems like it's sort of built specifically for web applications?
Yeah, basically, because that's what Heroku was designed for,
okay.
Is it's built specifically for deploying web apps.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it doesn't have to necessarily be PHP, obviously it can be a Node.js app or lots of other web apps.
It installs Nginx.
Ruby. Yeah. And it probably also installs Apache, because I know I was actually using the Heroku build pack instead of their build pack.
Okay.
Because the Heroku build pack had Apache and mine had a .htaccess file.
Okay.
I didn't have to bother rewriting for Nginx.
Right. Yeah. Personally, I always use Apache just because that's what I'm used to for most things. But yeah, Nginx, like you kind of use one or the other. Our restreaming server right now is running on Nginx, so I didn't know if you could use this with like other applications other than just websites. Because Nginx can do a lot other than websites.
If someone builds a build pack for it, you can probably. So it would be interesting to see kind of support for that.
And then now that you have this set up already, like, are you using this kind of thing for Minecraft Media at this point?
Yes, it's Minecraft Media runs fully on it. I haven't moved my other site, The Sims Media, yet to it, but I plan to, because then I want to shut down my DigitalOcean server. And what's cool is like it allocates the memory and the processing power to each app and kind of automatically manages which ones need more. That's a Docker feature. That's kind of just Docker is being built on top of. But that's cool because eventually as I add more sites, I can then just kind of all I have to do is add a new app in the VPS Docker settings and then push right to it and it'll deploy. And now they do have like a domains plugin, so you can change it to make sure that each app reads from a different domain, and then all you have to do is forward each domain to the IP address of your virtual private server.
Okay, so now that you've got it set up, what's it look like? I was trying to load up your website here to show as a visual. I mistyped it once, and now every time I go to minecraftmedia.com, it tries to redirect me to .net, which is wrong, so it doesn't work, but I don't know why it's redirecting. But
oh no, it's supposed to now. Minecraftmedia.net, right?
Oh, well then how come I can't get to it?
It should direct you to .net instead of .com. That's because just I wanted to stick with one official domain, but I wanted to have other entry points.
Right. How come is minecraftmedia.net up right now?
It should be.
Site can't be reached, but it might be. me.
Yeah, it's working on my computer.
Oh, is it? All right.
I don't know if MinecraftMedia.com is not working. Let me see.
Well, I'm going to .net now.
Yeah, .net's the one that's the official one. I also have it redirect to HTTPS so that it doesn't use the HTTP version.
Right. Okay, then the HTTP version works. HTTPS didn't for me. And by the way, when are you gonna approve Displaced episode 1? Submitted that a couple days ago. Anyway, no, that was what I was gonna ask.
I sent an email for it.
So I'm on here now. So when let's say you want to make an update to MinecraftMedia.net and you change something in the code, and then you've just made a change locally, because I assume you're developing it locally, if what I'm hearing sounds correct. What do you have to do to go from you just made a change in the code to pushing it live with Daku?
So basically, that's what's so cool about it is you know how you would say have git push and then the remote repository.
I don't know.
Often. Oh yeah. Well, with git you would often usually just do is git push, and the default one is to remote, and usually that's like GitHub or Bitbucket or something.
Right.
But with this, you can obviously set up multiple remotes.
Okay.
Or you could have, and so you can just set up remote for Daku, and you can add a remote named Daku, and you just specify like the user at your site, the default user for Daku and everything, and you can then push to that.
Okay.
And it just, as soon as it pushes to it, it really like detects it on the other end. As long as you have the right build pack configured for the app on your VPS, it just begins taking the code it just received, using it running through the build pack. The build pack then responds in your terminal with everything it's doing, and then when it like finally is up, it'll tell you, okay, app is now live at whatever. I mean, if you're running it locally, it'll say like app is live at localhost and random port generated.
Yeah.
If you're deploying it to a server that has it's called Daku Domains. It's a plugin that they have. You can set up the Daku Domains plugin, and then you can just say, okay, this app should use MinecraftMedia.net. This app should use TheSimsMedia.com. Or then apps can have multiple entry point domains as well. So then it will actually just tell you it's set up at that domain, so you can check it out.
So to push an update,
I have not actually.
How many commands is that?
One.
Okay.
It just prints all feedback to you.
And is that a Daku command, or like what do you type specifically?
So you specifically type git push Daku master if you're in the master.
So you set it up
branch.
through Daku, but then you're still using Git.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it has a Git server it runs on the other end. I don't know exactly I don't know what you call that, but there's a Git repository on the other end, and it detects when changes are made to that repository. And as soon as a change is made to that repository, it recompiles it and then sends you the information back. Well, it doesn't recompile, it's just PHP, but it rebuilds it using the build pack and sets up like a new Apache instance and replaces the previous one.
All right.
And by the way, I just approved your submission.
Oh,
so.
Sweet. All right, everyone, you can watch Displaced episode 1. There's about 45 more that I'll post. But episode 1 of Displaced is on MinecraftMedia.net. This is a website that Richard made. And yeah, it's really cool. So you made the whole this whole website from scratch, like even all the content management system portions you made from scratch, right?
Yes. It took like 2 years, and initially I developed it only for Minecraft. And then, so that took me about a year to get better. But eventually, after a year of that, I spent some time and just completely programmed it as a framework that I could then expand and make it basically I can create it for any other site I want to or any other game. And all I have to do is update and make a new theme for that particular front end UI.
Yeah. Now here's a question. Let's say that you were to update MinecraftMedia.net with a new feature right now. Actually, here's another example. I don't know if you got the forum post that I posted, but right now on MinecraftMedia.net, if I try to post a Steam URL with HTTPS in the URL, it doesn't accept it. So let's say that you made it so that it accepted those right now. So you're making a change to Minecraft Media. You push that. Would it automatically also push that to Sims Media, the way you have it set up right now?
Not yet. I would have to copy the base framework. The cool thing is I have the framework is stored in core and pages. And then the only other things that aren't part of the core, well, they're all part of the framework, but the only other things that are different for each site is the config folder and the themes folder. So I know that when I just want to, if I update the framework on one site, all I have to do is just copy the core and pages to everything else. And I put the config file in one folder because I know then I can really actually just do Control-A and then deselect config and deselect themes and know that I'll only update everything else rather than, say, accidentally script the theme on another site.
Yeah. So you've basically, I mean, yeah, you have made your own content management system. That's awesome. All right, well, we had a good conversation about Doku there. That's sort of Linux. How is that? How is Linux connected to Doku? Like, can you run that on Windows at all, or is that?
I think you can, maybe with Sigwin, but I'm pretty sure you. I don't know. It doesn't talk about it at all,
Yeah,
so I'm pretty
no, it
sure they don't want you doing it or don't really officially support it.
Yeah.
So
I'm wondering why that is.
I don't think Docker runs on Windows much, though. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So if it's kind of, I mean, Docker is basically the core of it.
Yeah.
If Docker doesn't support it, they can't really do much.
Mm-hmm.
Does Docker run on Windows? Just Google that. Okay, it does have a Docker for Windows tutorial. So, but like for the most part, people run VPSs and stuff. They're usually sticking with Linux. So I imagine it's not a huge community that affects. I mean, plus it's way cheaper to get a Windows VPS or way cheaper to get a Linux VPS than a Windows one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because Windows Server is so much more.
Mm-hmm. So you've got Linux right now that you use for developing, and then but you've got a Windows hard drive as well. What do you use the Windows hard drive for?
Mostly for games, pretty much right now.
Okay. And
I've mostly filled it up. Actually, I had a 1 terabyte hard drive, and it's almost full.
It's the popular answer. So, like, if you're just web browsing, is there one you'll pick over the other, Linux or Windows?
It just depends on which one I'm on. Usually I'm too lazy to restart, so if I just need to check the web, then it'll be whatever I was last on rather than restarting into an OS.
Okay.
Because Windows just takes a long time to restart into.
Right.
Like, I noticed Linux is so much faster, but...
Yeah. Do you know how many of your games run on Linux at all?
I could check. It's probably a fair amount. I was more having graphics card driver issues with some of them. Because my graphics card is fairly old. It's a GTX 650.
Okay.
So...
Well, I had a 650 Ti boost in my old desktop. It wasn't too bad, but yeah.
Yeah. Like, I can run GTA 5 on medium settings at, like, 720p fine, so...
Yeah. But, of course, GTA 5 is only available for Linux,
certainly
for
doesn't,
Windows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was like, I know that certainly doesn't support it.
Right.
There's a game I played at one time called Savage Lands, and I know that was on Linux, but it had some really weird graphical issues on mine for some reason. And I was using the proprietary drivers at the time, so... Like, like, shadows all went really weird, and you couldn't see anything, and parts of the screen would go black, and... So that was interesting to attempt to play, and I was like, nah, this isn't gonna work.
Alright, well, trying to think if there's any other... We can use that conversation as our feature segment. That was about, like, 25, 30 minutes. So, yeah, we can call it a week for this week, and Richard, I've got a list of cool... Well... I don't know how many of them were that cool, but I've got a list of some things me and Mark were planning on doing with Linux, so maybe we can take a look at the list and see if we can keep the feature segment going. Eventually this might just turn into a news show, so if we don't have features to do every week, but like, yeah, we can come up with something for next episode, but for now, I think that's a pretty good episode.
Are there people in the stream?
I don't know.
In the official stream
I
chat,
don't
I'm
think
not
so.
saying anything, but I don't know, it could be people on Twitch that we don't see. Do you have like a control panel that shows everyone on every platform?
Do I? I do, kind of.
You use the API.
Stream, well...
I used the Twitch API with PHP once to add it to my, have an old site.
If you can make us a control panel, Richard, that would be great. No, what I've got here, this is what I've got, is I've got a web page, an HTML page where I embedded all 4 of the chat rooms, just using the same code that I used to embed websites. That's why these are all 16:9. Embed videos in my websites. So yeah, this is my development of a control panel right here.
Hitbox, Twitch.
Oh, it's not even called Hitbox anymore, and it's not called Beam anymore either. 2 of these have been updated to change their names.
Since you updated your panel.
Hitbox is now Smashcast, Beam is now Mixer, and my control panel is outdated, but... Alright, so yeah, that's our episode for this week. Richard, you said that you might be available for the next couple episodes as well, at least?
Yeah. Probably definitely until like the end of August.
Alright, yeah.
Although I'm getting my wisdom teeth out on the 31st, so I don't know if that'll work, but...
That'll be a fun episode. Yeah, we might have to find a stand-in for that one. But yeah, great to have somebody else here who is familiar with Linux, and yeah, we'll keep an eye out for some more stories. We'll try and be a little more prepared next week. Me and Richard kind of didn't talk a whole lot before the stream this week, but... now that we've got the same person doing it a couple weeks in a row, we can kind of build up a rhythm and know a little bit more about the stories we're talking about for the next couple episodes. But yeah, hey, if anyone wants to talk about the stories we talked about this week, head on over to nerdofthestreet.com. We've got forums. We have an entire forum section just for Rolling Release. If you want to post stories that you think we should cover, that's the place to do that. And yeah, if you want to find me throughout the week, nerdofthestreet.com is the place to do that. Richard, where do you want to send people if they want to find you throughout the week?
Probably on Twitter, which is @Glorf22.
So yeah, for this week, that's everything. I'm Jacob Kaufman.
I'm Richard Bimmer.
And we'll see you guys next week.